started now. Thank you all so much for tuning in today. I am so excited to dive into this incredible call alongside you. First, a bit of background information on our host. Michelle is the co-founder of Squared Away, which is a team of trusted virtual assistants who span across the nation and the world, as I just learned. They empower military spouses to build meaningful careers while working from anywhere. And I know that there are several DD members who've worked with Squared Away assistants, and they've absolutely raved about the experience and how game-changing they've been for their businesses. And I even had the opportunity to onboard a Squared Away assistant for a previous client of mine, and I can attest to how absolutely dreamy the network is that Michelle has helped build. So thank you so much, Michelle, for taking the time to host this call. We know how valuable your time is and how busy you are, so we are so grateful to learn from you today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys for having me. I'm happy to kind of share all of my insight and tips and tricks and answer any questions that you guys have when it comes to, hiring your own VA and building that relationship. So, yeah, I'll kind of go ahead and dive in. I know Hannah had shared some questions and areas to kind of dive in first. So the first thing I kind of want to talk about is a VA right for me? How do you know you potentially needed an assistant? The best question to ask yourself is, are you overworked and overwhelmed? Because if you are, that means you need some help. And what I have found is our VAs help prevent burnout, number one, because even I can attest as a CEO, burnout is real. Even when it comes to small tasks, you absolutely need someone that you can trust to handle something so that you can focus on a higher priority in your business. It also improves your organization, because if you have a VA who is diving into your processes and helping you streamline systems, you're going to get a second set of eyes who is trained to do this and who can make things and life a little bit simpler. So taking that into consideration is huge. And then cost, generally, and most of the time, having a VA is a lot more cost effective than hiring an actual employee, because you don't have the overhead. And I know the way some virtual assistants work on systems like Upwork, where they charge by the hour for tasks. Squared Away, we actually do blocks of time per month. So if you have 25 hours per month, that's 25 hours of that assistant's time that you know is going to be dedicated to you and your business. And you can allocate that in any section you want. It can be personal, it can be, hey, I need you to help me plan a bachelorette party for one of my employees. Like, it can literally be anything within that block of time. Our hours personally don't roll over, but I know there are other companies that do that. So I think cost is a huge thing. And then absolutely trying to figure out, are you burnt out? Do you have other things you want to focus on? And if you feel like you just don't have enough time, that's also another great area to say, okay, yeah, I need some help. Let me bring in a VA. Before I dive into another section, does anybody have any specific questions related to figuring out if you need a VA? Okay, cool. So I know a lot of people have questions about VA qualifications, like what makes them qualified to support me. A lot of companies base their backgrounds on, do they have in-person EA experience? Do they have any type of assistant support, any remote work, admin, anything like that? So they like to have experience a lot of times. I know with Squared Away, we do like to see all of that, but what we have found is our team members range from people who have backgrounds as teachers, radiology technologists, yoga instructors, real estate agents. They literally have so many different backgrounds that it really translates well to Squared Away. I tell our team all the time, our 4 biggest requirements to being successful is you have to be highly communicative, because you are in a remote setting, And if you're not communicating, nobody knows what's going on, where a process is, where a task stands. And then, you know, if something happens, obviously you need to communicate that to the client and your team. So being communicative, and then extremely detail oriented. That's something that kind of goes without saying, especially in an assistant support role. You have to have an extremely high attention to detail. Number 3, being able to think outside the box. I think innately as military spouses, that's something we have to dive into on the regular, because there is no checklist for anything in this lifestyle. I PCS'd or moved from North Carolina to Hawaii, and that's literally all the military told me. It was very much here, figure it out yourself. So I think our team is really great at that. And then last but not least is being proactive. You can definitely find an assistant who, you know, is very low cost, great response, you know, all of that, but they have to be proactive. You don't want an assistant who's just gonna, you know, wait for you to send them tasks. You want someone who's thinking 2 steps ahead of you, so that, hey, you know, you probably don't need to book this conference because it's your anniversary or something like that. Just bringing that information to your attention so you can keep it or take it into consideration when you're making your plans. Any questions about VA qualifications or what would make someone successful doing that? Cool. I will kind of move on into the other questions. Inbox management is absolutely one of the bigger asks of a lot of our clients. And the main question with that is, how much control do you want to hand over to your assistant in that capacity? There are so many different ways that you can break down your inbox. You can have someone going in multiple times a day, drafting emails, sending them if they're kind of the low-hanging fruit on the tree, very low risk. You can also have your assistant marking emails as priority so that you can go in at the end of the day and respond to those directly. There are just so many different ways that you can build out inbox management. It's all in what makes you comfortable handing over to your assistant. And then a lot of our clients really like setting a time aside each day so that they can dive into email specifically, and they're not living and dying by their email and checking it every hour or even a few times an hour. And then making sure, we really like getting our clients to inbox 0. That's been my goal over the last year, because I found that I'm much more calm, cool, and collected when I have no emails in my inbox. But getting to that requires taking every single email and making it an action. Even if it's something like, I don't know, Sephora has a sale, so put that on your calendar. I'm going to shop this Sephora sale on Friday at 5 p.m. Every email equals an action if it's priority. And then labels and folders, you know, what makes the most sense for you. Your assistant can work with you to make sure it's divided and organized the way you want it to be and what your unicorn email inbox looks like. So there's so many different ways you can build that out. It just depends on how much control you want to relinquish over that. Any questions about inbox management specifically?
Yeah, I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Do people normally trust their virtual assistants to draft email responses, or even send email responses on their behalf? What's kind of the common practice around that?
So what I've seen typically is most clients will have an assistant draft an email on their behalf and just leave it in the drafts folder. That way you can just go through, look at it, click send, look at it, click send. If there's an edit, working with your assistant to say, hey, in the future, maybe we could say this when it's an email related to this topic. If it's low hanging fruit and it's not super high risk, like, hey, Kim, do you have time for lunch on Monday? And you see that time is open on the calendar. Absolutely. Let's go ahead and schedule it. Let me find a place, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
And then if it's not something you want to do because I have my team do daily recaps a lot of times, but put that in your daily recap and say, hey, I scheduled a lunch for you on Monday. This is the location. Here's who it's with. Just let me know if we need to move it.
Mhm.
Very straightforward. So if it's something that's low risk like that, typically our clients will say, go ahead and take it upon yourself to send, because they like the proactiveness and not having to wait for their response necessarily for certain things.
Do they, when they send something like that, do they normally send it as if they are the person, or do they send it saying like, hi, I am Julia's virtual assistant?
Typically they'll send it as the client, but they have the permission to do that already.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Inbox management is such a unique area because there are some people who really like still having that last say on emails and on drafts, but then there are some people who are like, you just deal with it because I don't want to. It's like my least favorite thing to do. So just finding the happy medium and the balance with the client so that you are still looking extremely professional to outsiders. That way they don't know that, hey, it's actually not Julia sending me this email. It's actually Michelle, her assistant. So that's something our team always keeps in mind. But I'm not sure how other companies would actually handle that. That's just how we handle it internally.
Do you ever have clients who choose to like make a designated email for the assistant and just kind of like loops them in to any communication and then has them respond as the assistant?
Yes. So I actually recommend that clients do branded emails for their companies, for their assistants, because our team members, we actually train them to integrate themselves into our client's business. So to the outside facing world, they are a part of, let's say, Dreamers and Doers. They are a member of that team without knowing that, hey, they're actually contracted by Squared Away. So we recommend that because it keeps internal communications internal, and they never have to worry about, oh, do they have access to this, because it's not an internal email, because I'm sure we've all seen that in Gmail a few times. So that's definitely something we keep in mind as well. And then adding them, I know some clients add their team members to their LinkedIn as an employee and that kind of thing, which is completely fine as well. Awesome. And then I know the other major question was how to manage a VA relationship. I think I've seen the good and the bad of this. I've seen the clients who send 1 or 2 tasks a month, not really communicating. Not, if you ask for feedback, you're not getting feedback on how something can be better. So my favorite thing is getting on, I call it brain dump calls weekly. I found that clients are easier to communicate with, and to share information and everything that's going on their head if they just do a brain dump call with their team member every week. Or even a couple times a week, and just say, oh, I thought about this, but I didn't email it or something like that. So it's not the client's job to prioritize emails. Or the information on those calls. It's the assistant's job to take that information from those brain dump calls and say, okay, well, number 1, we have to plan your wedding. Number 2, we have to worry about the honeymoon. This is kind of how I'm prioritizing things. If we need to sync on this, let's do it on Wednesday and Friday as well. So always in communication, always letting each other know kind of where a task stands. I always recommend using task management tools like Asana, Basecamp, Trello, that kind of thing. And then if there's something that needs to be chatted through, always getting on a call calls are always better than emails, in my opinion, if you have the time to do so. And just building that relationship, because I know with Squared Away, it's more than the client-assistant relationship. We train our team members to become the client's right hand. Like if they were to go on vacation, the client would be like, whoa, wait, I can't live without Hannah for a week. What am I going to do? So we always focus on building their relationships and getting on calls each week if possible. Sorry, Kim, I just saw your message. I've actually seen it's more the person's name. So like Hannah@dreamers.com or Michelle@dreamers.com. It just looks more internal as opposed to assistant at, because then you could be getting a multitude of people. Any other questions that I can answer? There's so much information that if there's something I'm missing, just let me know.
I would love to know, like, in addition to inbox management, like, what are some other common types of, tasks that virtual assistants can take off of your plate in terms of business, like, because, yeah, like specifically business side of things. And then also kind of piggybacking off of that, like, I have some like very specific skills that I would love to pass off to a virtual assistant. So is that something like you would help someone source a virtual assistant that would be able to do those very specific things?
Yes.
For example?
So,
okay.
Yep. So I'll start with the first part of your question. Different things that we've seen across the board, I feel like has ranged in a multitude of ways for businesses. So starting with your basic admin, scheduling, travel planning, meeting setup, food ordering, board meeting, scheduling for multiple teams. We actually do a lot with CEOs that are working with venture funds. So we have dove into researching different venture funds that would be great for their businesses to work with. We've done background research on the founders. We've done due diligence on the VC side as well. So here's this company, look into them for me, see if you can get me any public financials, that kind of thing. Very in-depth on that side of the house. And then for other businesses, we've done copywriting, editing, so many different things. We have paralegals. We also have people who are certified in QuickBooks, bookkeeping, literally from high level to low level, expensing, invoicing, putting contracts together is another huge thing that some of our independent consultants do. And then, helping put together pitch decks, you name it. We've put together events, offsites, planned offsites for team members, gift ordering, keeping track of all that stuff. Onboarding new employees has become a huge thing. Just making sure that their laptops are ordered, all that good stuff, they're all set on day one, from the time they get into the office. And then, another area that we've specifically dove into is the fundraising process for founders. Because if anybody has ever walked through a fundraising round for a founder, that's super fun. It's a chaotic 3-month period, but we've put together a CEO fundraising checklist that kind of walks them through from literally the baseline all the way to signing and close on their round. So that's been extremely helpful. It's, like I said, a little bit more of a chaotic period, but it goes extremely into depth. Mm-hmm. And then, oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, like, if there's multiple things on that list that interest me, like, let's say inbox management is one, and like, let's say bookkeeping is another. Would you try to find a generalist that can do both, or would you recommend getting a specialist, two separate VAs that
I
specialize?
always recommend going with one person who can handle both. That way you're literally only going to one person. You're not having to source multiple people. What we do internally at Squared Away is we essentially play assistant matchmaker. We match as many different asks for your unicorn assistant as we can with our available team members.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Okay.
for instance, if you wanted someone who is great at inbox management and bookkeeping, I could say right offhand, oh yeah, I know we have about 5 assistants who are East Coast based with that skill set. And this is probably who I would go with out of all of them.
Mm-hmm.
So we do the one-on-one matching.
Okay. Awesome.
What I always say is when you're getting started with an assistant, take a week and write down everything you do. Not everything super specific, but a general idea of what your day looks like every day, Monday through Friday. Things that you're handling that, number one, you might not enjoy. Number two, something that you need to do, but it's not your favorite. Like, just think about what your day looks like all day, or every day for a week, and write all of that information down. You can literally take a screenshot of a piece of paper of what your week looks like, and then your assistant can say, okay, well, on Monday you did 4 hours of emails. We could absolutely take that off of your plate. So you're getting 4 hours of your day back. Imagine what you could do with 4 hours. And that's over a week too. Even if you're not spending an hour a day in email, that adds up to 5 or more a week. And if you have someone else that's going through every email and saying, okay, well, Kim, you have 5 priority emails that you need to get to today. They're in your inbox. You should get to that as soon as possible. You know that you're going in to look at 5 emails. That's probably not going to take you an hour to do all of that. So I would just write down what your week looks like, and then share it with me or someone that you're considering working with, and they'll be able to chat with you more about how they can take those specific areas off of your plate. And I think another thing too, especially something that I've encountered, is when you are a solo entrepreneur and you are figuring out, what do I give away, especially if you're used to doing it all yourself. I know I get into the mindset of, oh, it's easier for me to do it myself than hand that off. If you're taking 20 minutes to put together how you like to do your emails or how you formulate your emails, and then you're handing that over to someone, that's 20 minutes of your time it takes to do that, but you're getting that back tenfold over the next few months. So just taking the time to write that down, or even when you have hired a VA, say, okay, let's chat through my calendar preferences. Once you do that once, you don't have to do it again. And then scheduling is off of your plate except for looping in your assistant. Of course.
I would love to know, I don't know if this is something you still were going to cover, but I would love to know, the financial commitment.
I think it depends. I know I'm speaking a lot to Squared Away, but I think it depends. I know, and I'm going to use one of our current clients as an example, but she actually started at, or wanted to start with us. I chatted with her about our costs. Like I said, we bill in blocks of hours per month. So we start at 15 hours a month for $500. That comes to about around $32 an hour. She decided a few months ago that we were out of her price range, and she went with someone cheaper, and she actually just came back to us 2 weeks ago and said, I made a major mistake. I should have went with you guys. But I think it depends on the caliber of what you're looking for. If you're looking for someone just to do research and, basic scheduling, absolutely go with someone that you can hand that over to and feel comfortable doing so. There are a ton of independent virtual assistants out there. But if you're looking for a higher caliber, then I would probably go with an agency that's used to sourcing those assistants and making sure that you're getting someone who is highly qualified in those areas, who we have seen success with before, and know that we're doing a one-on-one match when we do it. So it depends. I've seen on Upwork, I've seen $10 an hour to $75 an hour. It just depends. And then I know the matching companies like Squared Away, most of the time we do in blocks of hours. So it kind of just depends on what you're looking for.
Does it come out to like less per hour if you go with more hours per month?
So I know at Squared Away, it does as you move up in packages. So like if you start with 15 hours at $500 a month, it's about $32 an hour. But then if you go up to our 75-hour package, which is $22.50 a month, then that comes out to about $29 or $30. So you get a little bit of a discount there, but without the sacrifice of the quality.
Mm-hmm.
But my recommendation is I probably wouldn't go lower than 15 hours a month, just because if you're only spending 5 hours a month with someone, how well do they know you and your business? It's really not that much time to kind of get to know you and get to know what your groove looks like and anticipate your needs. So I say 15 is a really good happy medium. That totally depends. We have clients who are solo entrepreneurs and our assistants are only working with them for 15 hours a month. What we found, and this is something that we're starting to realize more as we're growing, is that clients will come to us and they'll start with 15 hours, but then they'll realize, oh my gosh, my assistant can actually do so much more than I thought she could. So they'll jump up like within a month. And sometimes they'll, like this week we had a fun one where a client started and he thought all he wanted was scheduling, and he literally jumped from 15 hours to a custom plan of 100 hours in a week because he saw everything and how much value that the assistant was giving him. I would say the common progression is about a month or two at 15 hours, and then most of our clients will go up to 25 or 50. And if they're looking for someone who's more or who is going to be closer to a full-time employee, then they'll move up to 75. But generally that's about I'd say 6-month period to get to 75 hours. But that's a generalization. Every client has been different, and there really hasn't been a cookie cutter client for Squared Away yet. I wish there were, that way we could get a better gauge on that, but everybody kind of moves up to where they need to be. Any other questions? I'm like a total open book. You guys can ask me anything. I've done the independent contractor thing before I was ever the CEO of Squared Away, so I'm happy to dive in there too.
I guess like kind of something that comes up for me is like how would I figure out if I want a virtual assistant to do these tasks, or if I would want to just hire like, you know, a bookkeeper, or, you know, who I pay a certain amount per month to just do my bookkeeping. Like, it's just, I'm struggling with figuring out like, how do I decide whether it's a virtual assistant that should be doing some of these things, or whether it'd be better for me to just get like, I feel like virtual assistant has come to just mean like any role. It's like, I feel like in the past I thought of virtual assistants as really just like inbox management and admin, but now that they really can do anything and specialize in so many different things, for me it just is hard to wrap my brain around how do I make the decision about whether it's a virtual assistant that I need, or if I just go and find like, you know, a marketing associate to help me with copywriting and a bookkeeper to help me with bookkeeping. And yeah, like I'm wondering how people make that decision.
In general, I don't have the best answer for that, because I know that is such a unique question, because it's like, do you want someone who this is absolutely their specialty and they're amazing at it, or do you want someone who's kind of good all the way around in lots of different areas, but maybe not the greatest certified bookkeeper in the world? Totally an amazing question. I always say, if you're curious about what it's like to work with an assistant, do it for a month, just a month as a trial, and say, okay, I want to see if this works. If it doesn't, you really haven't risked that much, but you've tried it enough to see if it's something that could potentially work for you long term. I've found that having, and this is me personally, but just having multiple people in multiple areas, things just get really busy, a lot busier than I like. And I like just having one person as my go-to for a multitude of different things. That way I can always say, Hannah, I'm going to pick on you, but Hannah, did this get scheduled? Also, do we have the bookkeeping report for January? Like all that good stuff, I can ask her on one call, as opposed to getting on multiple calls and having to dive in with multiple people. So that's just my take on it. But I say, if you're curious, doing a month trial with low risk tasks is not a huge risk for you business wise.
Yeah. Okay. That's good to know that I could do just like a month.
Yeah, you absolutely could. I know with Squared Away, our only thing is we have a 30-day cancellation policy. If you, and this is just for dreamers and doers, it's not for all clients, but if you did want to do a 1 month trial, like with us, and we do a 25% off your first month with Squared Away for dreamers and doers. So if you did start at like a 15-hour package with us, you're really only risking $375, which isn't huge in the grand scope of the word.
Yeah.
VA, but you're able to get a really good sense of what that process looks like.
Got it.
So no huge risk there. And I'm totally not trying to sell Squared Away. That's just the way we do things. But I can't speak to like other independent contractors. And I know when I was working just for me, I kind of tackled it the same way. Like, let's do this for a month. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Because a lot of times clients and some assistants just aren't a great fit for each other. And that's completely fine. Some people just don't work well together. And that's something we take into consideration at Squared Away, is when we match you, we think of your personality type and how you are, how you chat with us, like, and how our assistants are going to react to that. Like, we take into consideration so many different things when it comes to matching. So yeah, I always say, just give it a shot. Kim, yes. Most of our clients share extremely sensitive passwords, social security numbers, credit card numbers, all that good stuff with their assistant. We use LastPass. Every assistant has one. I know some clients prefer 1Password, and other programs, and those are fine as well. It's all in what system works best for you. But I know, like, for example, one of my clients, I could probably, and this has been a few years ago, but I think I used his credit card information so much that I memorized it, and I've never memorized a credit card so much in my life. Like, I've never done it with anyone's but his. But it's always safeguarded. Our assistants don't save anything to their desktop. It's all in a drive, very secure. Our internal emails are extremely secure, but all passwords and everything are shared in their own individual LastPasses, so that even I don't have access to that. It's only the assistant that does. Any other questions? There's so many different areas of VAs that you could dive into. And I know some of the major ones that I've seen clients asking for is social media marketing, Instagram, Pinterest, Facebook, all that good stuff. And we do have assistants who are extremely familiar with all of that, and scheduling on Hootsuite, all that stuff. So we are absolutely up to speed on that. I can't say that I'm great at that, but I know a bunch of our assistants are. I recommend on how to educate someone on your voice is just having them like read through your emails. As silly as that sounds, just read through your sent emails, because they're going to get a really great understanding of how you communicate professionally, how you communicate to friends, scheduling lunches and dinners and that kind of thing. And then, you know, maybe adding them on social media so that they can see how you're interacting there, to get a feel for you, how you would be able to post like on Instagram and that kind of thing. Of course. And then another thing I want to cover real quick is if you work with Squared Away and your assistant leaves, because a lot of our assistants are military spouses, one thing that we address in the first week of training is how you quit. Not most people talk about how to quit a new job when you're just starting one. But as military spouses, in, you know, how important building relationships is, we take into consideration the effect that could have on the client. So we teach our assistants how to make sure that the transition from them to another person is as smooth as butter. So they're walking them through tasks, they're walking them through processes, they're joining calls prior to the current assistant leaving. So there's various systems in place to make sure that you're getting the right assistant. Your current assistant is sharing everything that they're doing. And it's about a month-long process. And we found that that's been extremely helpful. We have assistants who are moving currently from the East Coast to Japan, and they're just not going to be able to continue working with their client. And that's something they're in the process of doing right now, and it's been incredibly seamless. So I would definitely take that into consideration as well when you're looking for an assistant. How long are they going to be with you, and how much time and effort and energy do you want to dive into if it's just someone who is only looking for something for a few months? I know at Squared Away, our assistants are guaranteed to be with us for a year at a minimum. And most people, which we're only 2.5 years old, but most people have been with us for the long term and haven't left yet. Anything else? I think that's all I had written down, but your questions have been awesome. Hannah, do you have any questions?
I guess what is something you would say, because I know I have this problem with my own sort of, oh, Kim has a question. We can
Kim.
help with her question first.
The biggest mistake. Oh man, that's a great question. I would just say from our team, it's been typos. And to remedy this, we started requiring everybody to use Grammarly, because not everybody's a spell check person like I am. But yeah, no, I would say just typos, client names, email names to people. Like, it's just typos has been the biggest thing. And the way I train my team is, they would probably tell you I need to have I have slow down to go faster tattooed on my body somewhere. But I tell them all the time, you know, you don't have to fly through a task. You should read it multiple times, make sure that it's absolutely perfect, slow down, and you're going to go a lot faster. And we have found that, you know, as much as I drive this into them, it happens and it works. So I think, you know, aside from the grammar, that's it. I think feedback is the biggest mistake our clients make. Our team members are constantly asking for feedback on something. If they are given a process or they're told to work on a process or given a task, if something's not right or if something is not exactly what you had in mind, not giving the assistant that direct feedback, I would say is the biggest mistake I've seen. About a year ago, we had a client cancel and they said that their assistant wasn't reading their mind. And our assistants are great at a lot of things, but reading minds is not one of them. So that's another reason I recommend those weekly calls, is just so that you can give feedback. If you've seen, you're getting scheduled at a coffee shop you really don't like that much, like communicating that with your team or communicating that with your assistant and just saying, hey, let's actually go to this coffee shop because I'm not a Starbucks fan. Like, just sharing that information, even if it's something so small, it's going to do amazing things because they're getting at least some feedback from you.
What do you think is the best way to share feedback? Like, do you think if, like, let's say if I see an email draft and I don't like the way that it was structured, should I just like really quickly on the spot, like forward it to my assistant and be like, hey, I'd prefer if this was this way? Or do you think that it's better to like, not sugarcoat, but like be less direct or kind of summarize it all in one email instead of sending it as things happen or hopping on a call? Like, what do you recommend?
I say, number one, make it as simple as possible. Forward it, be direct, and say, I don't like this phrase, let's take this out. Because I guarantee everybody on my team has thick skin. They deal with me, and I'm extremely direct, and I will call them out in a hot second on something. But directness is very much appreciated. Like, this is how I would draft this. I really don't like it this way. And then it's done. You don't have to worry about, formulating or sugarcoating that on a call, and they've noted it for the future. And things can change immediately after that, as opposed to waiting a couple of days and they might draft it the same way a couple of different times. So then it's just a waste of time, and we want to optimize your time, not waste it. So that 2 seconds to send that information is extremely valuable.
Yeah. Okay.
And we like direct people. Kim, I'm so excited you are signing up for us. That's awesome. I hope your intro call goes really well. I would say with our intro calls, just because you're doing yours tomorrow, I would think of the top 3 things right off the top of your head that I don't know if you've done a whole bunch of thinking about how this call is going to go, but think of the top 3 things off the top of your head and say, like, it can be basic stuff like, scheduling or travel planning or diving into my inbox management. All of that stuff is super valuable for your assistant, because then they can focus on those 3 things and building that base so that you can say, oh yeah, well, Gemma's great at this, and maybe she can start drafting me some social media posts. Like, all of that stuff translate into other areas as well. So I would definitely say top 3 things, and getting as much information to her as you can, logins, your calendar preferences, like even if it's just like a small blurb, is super important, and it will be incredibly helpful on that call.
Can you, so let's say you have like 25 hours a week package. Would you decide upfront with your virtual assistant, like how they're going to distribute those hours weekly? And could you ask them like to do them on like Wednesdays and Thursdays between 10 and 6? Like, how specific can you get with the scheduling of those hours?
You can get extremely specific with those hours. Typically what we've done, or what I've seen the normal be, is our assistants will plan for, like, if there's a weekly call for 30 minutes, they'll consider that into that time as well. And then we generally tend to go week by week as opposed to monthly. So at the end of every week, you're going to get a report from your assistant that says, hey, Kim, you've actually spent, or I've actually spent 2 hours in email, an hour and a half scheduling, and you have 17.85 hours remaining for the month. These are my priorities for the following week. Let me know if there's something else you're thinking of right off the top of your head. And then, okay, well, we spent 10 hours this week, so I know I have 5 left for the month or whatever it is. So then you can kind of plan each week accordingly. If you know you have a crazy project coming up, you can plan ahead for that and say, hey, I'm actually going to be a little bit quiet the next 2 weeks. I have a major project coming up that I want you to help me with, and we're going to hold off to the end of the month. Totally fine. Okay. It's all in how you want to play that. And if you have them doing daily tasks as opposed to just one-offs, that's something to take into consideration as well. But you're always going to know exactly how much every task takes every single day because they're tracking that every single day. We use Harvest for every project. So from the time your assistant is checking her email or logging in for a call with you, the clock starts running. And then as soon as it's complete, it stops. So you're going to get
that's broken out by task. Like I would see like so-and-so spent, 45 minutes on email, like inbox management, like 15 minutes on scheduling a meeting, like, okay.
So
then
all
just
of that is broken down.
Like would they batch email, like they would do like all inbox management at once? And
well, if they're doing it per day, the way Harvest breaks it down is you can do a detailed report or you can do a basic report. So the detailed report is going to show you by day, like on Monday, Shelby spent 30 minutes on email. She spent 10 minutes scheduling. And then Tuesday to Wednesday, Thursday, Friday is going to be broken down the same way. So then you'll have a good idea at the end of the week, like, okay, well, she spent 5 hours on email this week, just based on her Harvest report. Sorry, Kim, I just saw your other message. Yeah, you can absolutely ask her what her top 5 skills are as well. I think that's a really great question, and our assistants like telling you what they're good at. So it's a really great starting point for building that relationship because some people are better at some things than others. And Shelby's really great. You got an amazing assistant. She's super sweet.
This is so exciting. I love it.
I know. I love talking about my team. They're really, like, sincerely some of the coolest and just amazingly talented people I've ever worked with. I am not great at social media, and some of my team members blow it out of the water. And I'm like, if you follow Squared Away social media, that is not me. Just so you're clear that it's our team. A multitude of our team members are doing that. And it just fascinates me how amazingly talented they are at that. And there really is I would say, no limit to the tasks that can be done. If anybody has been with us for a long time and has heard me talk about my co-founders CAN event the past few years, that was something that was done and planned completely remotely. If anyone's done CAN in the summer, it's generally, lots of business yacht parties, that kind of thing. We found him a dinghy for multiple years in a row, literally a dinghy, filled it full of ice, champagne, and beer, and had a saxophonist standing on the pier playing music while he had a pirate flag hanging over his boat. This was an actual task, something that I coordinated from Hawaii that multiple team members were in on. So if we can pull off that, we can absolutely pull off anything. Because that was I minored in French in college. I think that's the only time I've spoken French since college, and it was to find a saxophonist. So anything is possible with your assistant, and it's literally like, how high can you dream with them? How big can you dream? And another thing too is, I know that some virtual assistants will actually travel for events. Squared Away assistants have traveled in the past for events, and that's something that we can coordinate as well. And it's always fun to meet your clients and assistants in person.
All right. Well, if there are any last minute questions, feel free to drop them or speak them. Michelle, if you had any final thoughts. If not, we can go ahead and wrap up. Everyone's all good to go.
Anybody can feel free to email me any follow-up questions or message me on Facebook. My email's super easy, michelle@gosquaredaway.com, or message me on Facebook. I'm always open. And I love questions because I love talking about our team.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Michelle. This was just really, really insightful and fun to learn more about. I hope this call is helpful for everyone. Thank you all so much for tuning in. It was lovely to spend time with fellow DD members this afternoon. I hope everyone has an amazing rest of their day.
Thank
Awesome.
you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Ladies. Have a good one.
Bye.